Namaskar everyone. Topic of today's technical session is measurement of earthwork in hilly terrain. The sequence of the presentation will be terms used in earthwork, type of soil, guidelines for measurement, provisions seeking attention by executives and gradients in planning. The various terms which are used in earthwork need to be clear to the executives to use them correctly and pay accordingly. Site clearance. Site clearance is clearing the site from vegetation, any debris or any unwanted material available on site. Surface dressing. In surface dressing, the unevenness of the surface need to be made plain. Surface excavation. In surface excavation, we excavate the entire surface for an average depth, let's say of 150 mm. Rough excavation. Rough excavation, as the name itself says, it is the excavation keeping the sides and the bottom rough. Excavation over areas. Excavation over area is defining the boundaries of the excavation and doing it accordingly, and also it includes the ramming of the bottom surface. Excavation in trenches. When the excavation over area is done in a smaller widths, it is known as excavation in trenches. Excavation for excess depth. Whenever the excavation is done for more than 1.5 meter, then it is measured in the multiples of 1.5 meter. Excavation disposal. The rate of excavation includes for disposal of debris and soil to some extent, which we will discuss in the presentation ahead. Lift of soil will be defined and explained. Excavation working space, which is allowed by the code and SSR, is 0.6 meter. It doesn't depend if the contractor does the bulk excavation and claims for it. It should not be paid. For example, if a DO of excavation of refilled earth is prepared for 1.84 lakhs, then there can be two issues. First, he is claiming for the entire block of excavation which he has done. However, for retrofitting of some few numbers of columns, only the isolated excavations need to be done. Moreover, he has asked for star rate because the re-excavation of the filled up soil is not part of SSR. However, it can always be categorized as excavation in loose soil. So, this DO has been reduced from 1.84 lakh rupees to 16 lakh rupees only. There are various types of soils: soft soil, hard soil, soft rock and hard rock. Executive need to be clear what kind of rock, what kind of soil is there on site before doing the payment. In a terrain like Leh, where the boulders are there in the soil, where you will find soft soil at some place and hard soil at other places, it is better to invoke the clause 3.1.10 of SSR Part 2, which says, in case of any dispute with regard to classification of various stratas and their depths, the decision of G will be final and binding. That means even the higher executives don't have say in this. G is the final authority. So, it is better to write in contract that the excavation is to be done in any type of soil. This will release the stress of the executives at the execution end. Few provisions of SSR Part 2 are as follows, which relates with the earthwork. Section 3.1.1, the measurement shall be those of the authorized dimensions for which the soil has been taken out and shall be measured net with the tolerance for increase in bulk. Working space of 60 centimeter allowed where overhead working not feasible. For a deeper foundations where overhead working is not feasible, only a working space of 60 centimeter is allowed. If the contractor does the block excavation, it should not be paid. Rates of the excavation include disposal of any rubbish in the excavated material to 50 meters, getting and placing excavated materials within 1 meter from the boundaries of the excavation, and separation of useful and unuseful material. For example, if any boulders are there in the excavated material, it is a duty of the contractor within those excavation rates to separate the useful boulders and get the schedule of credit. Now, we will discuss the guidelines for measurements. Hilly areas are sloping in nature and invoke huge earthwork if you have to plane those areas for the construction of the building. Hence, correct measurement is the essence which every executive has to learn to make the saving for Government of India. photographs before and after excavations are important to keep the record and also assess the accessibility of the site of earthwork. Same area should not be measured twice for excavation, for surface excavation and excavation over areas, which is usually done in road measurements. IS 1200 Part 1 Clause 5.2 says lift inheritance in lead due to ground slope should never be paid. This we will discuss in the next slide. Item 300 of SSR says rough excavation of depth not exceeding 1.5 meter, and 3004 says about excavation over areas. It itself says it includes dressing, trimming, leveling, grading and ramming. And for additional 1.5 meter depths, item number 3005 should be invoked. The layout plan of one of the work is this, where the accommodation has to come on the top of the mountain. So, we have to make road from A to B point. This, the level difference is about 200 meter. So, it cannot be a straight road. It has to govern the gradient requirements of IRC, which we will discuss further. These are the site photographs. The blue line in the first photograph is showing the layout of the road. This is the slopey terrain where we have cut the road. Now we will start with the provisions which seek the attention of the executives. In this sketch, you can see that the earthwork of the height of 5.5 meter need to be excavated, but the lift of 5.5 meter is not admissible in this area because the topmost point is approachable from the other side of the slope, and contractor has to dig the earthwork in a layer of 1.5 meters. So, what the contractor will claim in this scenario is, he will claim for the lift of 5.5 meter. He will ask you for area over excavation because he is controlling the side, but in this only the rough excavation should be measured for 1.5 meter layer and the bottom layer should be measured for the leftover depth. An example is given in the last. Ideally, only the rough excavation X should be paid. However, if we count for the lift and the area over excavation, we will end up paying 4 times the X. That is 5 times the money which is actually due to the contractor. Other provisions which seek attention are for measurement of earthwork of road. The central area should be measured either as excavation over areas or surface excavation. Both should not be measured. In case of swimming pools and UG sumps also, the top layers should be measured in a multiple of 1.5 meter with the top excavation measured as rough excavation and only the bottommost measured as excavation over areas. However, since this is confined at all the 4 sides, hence the lift is admissible. Food for thought for the engineers, whether the isolated footings which are deeper than 1.5 meter need to be measured as area over excavation or rough excavation. For me, this is to be measured as area over excavation because that is a very small area and contractor need to be precise to dig up such area. The gradients as per IRC 52 2019 says the ruling gradient is 5%, limiting 6%, exceptional 7%. In our work, the initial planning was done with the random gradient of 8% which is not there in IRC. So, we adopted 5% ruling gradient, and at certain locations where the excavation quantities are very much, we adopted 7%, limiting to 100 meter run. This has increased the quantity of earthwork in contract from 1.25 lakh cubic meters to 3 lakh cubic meters. This has resulted in a due of 6 crores in a work of 29 crores. But due to the wrong measurement practices prevailing, contractor was claiming 12 crores as a DA amount for the same work. This also need to be regulated with the correct measurement. So, we did the surveying of the entire area with total extrusion and made the contour plan. After the road excavation is done, then the levels are taken at 1 meter of the formation width, and then those levels are imported in the software, and software has given us the entire earthwork amount. So, this is the precise method how the earthwork should be calculated in hilly areas. This has resulted in saving for the government to the tune of 8 crore rupees. I would like to say, since the start of the work, we have a question in mind how to measure this earthwork, and now I can confidently say you cannot manage what you can't measure. Thank you.